It has happened in Vegas. The Cup's going to stay in Vegas. And for the first time, the Golden Knights are Stanley Cup champions.
All right, welcome back to the Bread Loves Hockey podcast. This is episode 3. Can't believe we made it this far. Super excited to have my next guest here. I've known him for a long time. We go back into elementary school. He was sort of the first person that really exposed me to hockey. Before I got to Clarkson, I didn't really believe him when he was talking about how exciting the sport is, and so I'll have to give my formal apologies once we introduce him here. But yeah, super big reason for getting into the sport and sticking with it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest today, Zane Carril. Zane, welcome.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate the intro. Yeah, I know. I saw the last one.
The warm welcome.
The warm welcome. Yeah, no, I saw the last one. And I was like, oh man, I tried to get him into hockey. But you ended up here, and now you got a podcast, and you're honestly you know more about it than I do at this point. I'm maybe an outer specialist, but rest of the league is all you, man. So excited to be here, talk some Isles, which is my abusive relationship and love for hockey all rolled into one. Is me being a fan for as long as I've been alive. It's some troublesome years that I fought through.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like with most of my friends who are now into hockey, it's like I've sort of surpassed them in my, at least since I've been getting into the league, my knowledge of the teams, the whole league in general. Most of them, of my friends, know a lot of stuff about their team, and maybe they got some background knowledge in some other teams, but it seems like I've really taken the lead when it comes to the minutia and stuff, just because I just get so into following any little scrap of news with the league, and
yeah,
serve me another bowl, please. Thank you very much.
I had to Google. You put reverse retro as 1.2 in our little loose agenda here, and I was like, I don't remember what the Islanders reverse retro one was. I was like, that wasn't this one, was it? So even that kind of stuff, all the jersey and everything is. Yeah, man.
Well, to your credit, the reverse retro one for the Islanders was easily forgettable.
I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, it's when they didn't change anything and called it a reverse retro. Yes.
Yeah, it's the one where they they changed the color from blue to dark blue.
Yeah, they just went
and said, looks good.
They did Paint 3D. They just moved the shader down a little bit, and they're like, all right, guys. Ship it. That was that.
Send.
Yep. Nice.
Lou said it looks good.
Lou's like, that's plenty different for me, and it sent it out.
Yeah. When those ones initially dropped, I was like, that was definitely in my underwhelming category. I was like, that's it.
It's the same jersey.
You have so many things to harken back to, and this is what you've come up with. This is your first choice. Okay, wow. It's not even really reverse. I don't know how you can call it retro. Did they use that shade of navy back in the day? Maybe, I don't know. But obviously we're both rocking our 2.0s today, which I think we both agree are
much better.
Much improved, yeah. They didn't use the teal as much, which I know a lot of fans were kind of wishing they did a little bit more, but I think
the toothpaste tube kind of on the bottom there.
But I think the team or the franchise in general is just trying to get away from that branding pretty much, and they knew they were gonna at least sell something with this.
Yeah.
But they were like, I'm not gonna do a full retool of the whole teal, and I mean I guess that's part of what makes it the reverse part is you've got the current colors of the orange and stuff, so it's different. And overall, I think it's pretty sharp. I think it was received, fairly well. This second round was pretty well received compared to the first round. I think there are definitely some head scratchers or some just uninspired looks, which there were a couple of those this year. I think Chicago and Detroit were both pretty bad. The big word marks with like a whole bunch of stripes, and
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
like meh,
I
you
just
know.
steered
Yeah.
clear from those.
Yeah.
But I think overall, most of the teams like learned their lesson from the first one. They're like, okay, we got to actually put a little bit of effort in here. We got to actually make the design look good.
Right. Yeah.
So
Marketable, so
let's
people buy
let's
it.
try
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
actually sell some. And
Yeah.
then they actually made enough for pretty much everybody to get one like on release for the most part. I think some of them still sold out, but not like nearly as quickly as that first round, which is why they're so gosh darn hard to find the really nice ones that everybody bought,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
which is a shame.
still waiting for Vancouver to bring back the big V with like the worst jersey ever. Like I know like the
Oh,
Vancouver fans love it. I see the charm. Right? I mean, this jersey like kind of sucks, but for me, I'm like, oh, back to the olden days. But the
yeah.
V has to come back for sure.
I'm sure there's definitely a lot of Vancouver fans that grew up in that era. They're like, I know how awful it was, and
Yeah.
at the time it absolutely sucked. But like, wouldn't it be kind of fun
Now
to
that
see them just do it
yeah,
again,
like now that we
just to
know that it
see?
sucks, like yeah, but it's the sucky jersey I grew up on, so bring it
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the nostalgic suck, which is good.
Yeah, it's like when you eat Lunchables now, and you're like, I know this sucks, but I miss it, right? It's
Yeah,
the same thing, yeah.
that processed flavor is something I've been craving for some reason.
Yeah,
I
it's like
don't
I
know
don't know
why.
why, but I'd pay extra for it.
I'm just drawn to it. Yeah, yeah. That I don't know how they could make it work, but I'm sure if they did a throwback V jersey, they would sell.
Yeah, I
Like people would want them, even though they're awful. Like I think that's probably the draw. Like sometimes the really ugly ones just sell really
yeah,
well. Like
you
oh my
gotta
god.
gotta lean into it. I think that I would get one. I don't have any other team jerseys. All I have is Islander jerseys and a Team USA jersey. But I think if they came back with the V, I think I'd get one, just in solidarity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have any other team jerseys either.
Yeah, no, those are all just like different like Vegas jerseys, right?
Yeah, they've
Yeah,
got a lot of colors
it's
over
crazy.
the
They've been in
past
the league.
6 seasons. Yeah,
Yeah, they got like 3 jerseys per season. Yeah.
they really went crazy.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have another jersey coming up this year. We actually just saw a little bit earlier today, or maybe yesterday, there was some leaks about the upcoming Winter Classic looks. I think they had some hat designs for what the
Oh.
Kraken and the Golden Knights designs are going to look like. So it looks like Seattle's probably going to do Metropolitans throwback, which pretty much everybody was expecting, but they're probably going to
Yeah.
keep their current color scheme. They're going to do the dark and the light blue, or the teal, I guess you can call it, which I think will look good. I think some people were hoping for the original colors, the light green and the red,
Like the
but
full
they're
throwback.
they probably wanted to, be part of their own identity, not just a straight, rip off, which I think is good. I think that's pretty much what a Winter Classic jersey should look like, especially for a new team. It's hard to get a lot of inspiration, so good to
Yeah.
start building their brand even more, which I think they've done pretty well. I think their reverse retro this year was received pretty well. It wasn't like anything that people were really super into, but I think it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job of like building the brand and stuff. I have a couple buddies, like Ryan is, yeah, I know you know him. Like he's a Kraken fan now because like he's never been a diehard fan of any team.
Yeah,
Kind of like you in Vegas, right? Like they came in, he's like, oh, it's a cool team, we have a cool energy. Like,
yeah, they do.
yeah,
Yeah, and like I did with Vegas, it's fun to know like the whole franchise history. Like, you're gonna know as long as you've been like a fan of the sport, you're gonna know everything about the team and going through all their ups and downs, which is cool. They had a rough first season, but they totally bounced back last year. Crazy playoffs. They pushed Dallas to Game 7 too. It would have been cool to have a Vegas versus Seattle
the expansion cup
conference finals.
Yeah. Conference finals, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was kind of pushing for that. Plus, I also thought we would be able to beat Seattle. I wasn't even sure. Like I thought, yeah, we'll probably beat Dallas if we play them, but I think I'd rather play Seattle.
Yeah, I think you guys are probably a favored in that matchup against Seattle. I pull for
Yeah.
Seattle. They're kind of my team in the West because Kraken is like a cool team name, and they got everybody, and I love that really since he came to the island. So I pull for them in the West, but it would be a cool final to see.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, you couldn't really lose with Islanders versus Kraken, although you'd obviously want the Islanders to win, but it would be kind of fun. Although I know, like with Vegas winning, I think a lot of people would be upset. Like if it happened, this season, if the Kraken went to the Cup final, I think some fans would be like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, like,
Like,
2 expansion teams, okay.
is this
right,
is this really happening again? Like if
right, yeah.
especially fans of teams that haven't seen their franchise win, either ever or in a long time. Like Islanders haven't won since '83. I know that's been
thanks for the reminder.
that's been tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we could get into a little bit the pain.
Yeah, I was negative 14 when they won their last cup, so yeah.
Yeah, they won 4 straight, and then they said, "Well, that was a little bit too much for one sitting. So let's really spread it out. We'll take a really long time before we get to our next one."
Take a 40-year hiatus from like winning.
Yeah. And they had a couple of good runs recently. Those 2 back-to-back Eastern Conference final trips, lost to the eventual champions in both of those series.
Yep.
In Tampa, which tough. I was definitely pushing for New York in those series, especially the second year. I was like, okay, I really don't want to see Tampa in the final again.
Yeah.
But heartbreaker. And you were actually at one of those games. You were at the last game at the Coliseum, right?
So it was the second last. I don't think it was the last game at the Coliseum. The game that I was at was the game where Pulak had the sliding block across the crease with like the open glove on. I think it was Sergachev. Like game was ending. Like Tampa had the net empty. All kinds of pressure. We were up in the nosebleeds. We thought it went in. Like my dad and I, we were like, "You gotta be kidding me." I think it was one of the last games at the Collie. Honestly, man, my memory's so shot. I can't even remember if that was the same series. But it was still really cool to be there because like now like you'll see
it
the
might
clips,
have been
right?
Game 4 maybe.
I think it was Game 4 in that evened the series. I think that was how it went. We tried to get tickets for Game 6. I mean that was crazy because like literally the last game at the Collie. I think that it was insane, but second to last isn't too bad. I grew up going there, so it was cool to see one more game there in the playoffs when we're doing well. We win the game. Like that was a cup would be better, but other than a cup, that's about as good of a game you could hope for before they left the Collie.
Yeah, and it is cool to see them, win a game like that meaningful and that tight, that deep in the playoffs. I've never been to a playoff game. I definitely want to get to one. I was sort of looking this past season to see if I could find something, and luckily there were a handful of teams I could have gone to. I could have gone to Rangers, Devils, or Bruins probably. I could have gone to Islanders too, actually. But the pricing was a little bit much, and I was like, maybe I'll look for something next season. But it's a completely different atmosphere,
Yeah, it's crazy. You can tell, like even like watching it on TV, it's like a different viewing experience. Like playoff hockey is just so damn good, man.
Yeah.
At the Collie especially, because like the Collie sucked. Everyone that's been there knows it. Arena sucked. It was way too old, falling apart. But it was like the best place to see a playoff game, which helps keep the tickets cheap because it's like, well, you're gonna wait in line for 20 minutes to go to the bathroom. Beer's $18 and it's not good beer. Like it was a bit of a relic, which kept the prices down. But like UBS tickets this year, crazy expensive. I was in the same boat you were. I was like looking and I'm like, I'm not, $300 to sit up in the nosebleeds and have to watch the jumbotron, which is basically just being on TV. I was like,
Yeah.
Like at that point, I was like, it's not not for me. But
Yeah, it is. It is kind of cool to have, that history there. Like, yeah, it's this old crappy building, but it's our crappy building. I'm
exactly.
sure a lot of Flames fans feel the same way about the Saddle Dome. Although I'm sure they're getting to the point where they're like, okay, when is this new arena deal gonna kick in? Because this place is like
Right.
falling apart. And I think recently Lucic was talking about how he thought maybe some players weren't going to be willing to re-sign there, partially because of the building, and also just like the area in general is not really, there's not a lot going on when you're not watching a hockey game. So yeah, they don't have as many attractions. So it is cool to see UBS, brand new. They've got all new facilities there and the nice big screen and stuff. So it's cool to have those amenities,
Yeah, it's
get people more involved. But
nicer than the Barclays Center too, where there's
different.
like obstructed view seating and like the jumbotron was off center. Like it was a very bizarre time of like limbo between the Collie and then UBS. But Islanders were the same stuff when we were in the Collie that Calgary is probably going through, where they're like area's kind of lame, arena kind of sucks, team sucks, right? Like we couldn't sign anybody. I mean, it
Yeah.
every year it was like, oh, the Islanders are in play for this guy, and it never happened. And then, oh man, it must have been maybe 10 years ago now. We signed Letty and Boychuk on like the same day. And that was kind of like the turning point. Then obviously you get Barry Trotz and Lou, and that's like a whole nother level,
Yeah.
which is, kind of the chapter that revived the franchise a little bit. But I remember those days that Calgary's going through where nobody's signing there, and you're losing all your players, and you're like, well, what the hell, man? I just want to watch some hockey, and then you guys win 30 games in a season. You're like, all right, see you guys next year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. It is. It's nice having that your own energy with those buildings, but um, yeah, it's definitely not easy seeing players that you've loved, or players that you think might want to come, just leave, just have no real interest. And you're like, you don't feel like the team's progressing. You don't know how long you're going to be going through these sort of growing pains. It's like, all right, is this going to be happening for another like 2-3 years, or it's going to be 5 years or 10 years or what? So um, recently the Islanders had some pretty good stretches. We just talked about the playoff runs. They did make the playoffs last year, which I think, some fans were definitely counting them out after they missed in the previous season. I think some fans were like, yeah, they're pretty much done. They're just bringing back the older core for the most part. And I guess we could talk a little bit about that as far as going into this season is they're pretty much bringing back the old squad from last season, except they've got a full year of Pierre Engvall and a full year of Bo Horvat, and then I think they signed a couple minor guys. They picked up Kuhlman, and they picked up Julien Gauthier, but
Mm.
you know, just depth signings, really, just trying to fill out the roster a little bit. I don't think there's too many expectations for prospects to come in this season, so especially with the Islanders in general, it seems like they're usually pretty slow to bring their prospects in. Like they usually are pretty set with their established guys for the most part until they retire, because that's kind of how it seems for a lot of
Yeah,
Islanders players is they're pretty much there until they retire.
yeah, yeah. I think that like the big pieces, like you said, for next season. I think we probably make the playoffs if that line with Nelson, Palmieri, and Engvall does for a full season what they were doing end of last year and basically carrying the team into the playoffs with that Barzell. I think Horvat hopefully refines his scoring touch a little bit. I know he's adjusting the system and didn't have Barzell for most of the time he was here. I think if the roster performs as Lou hopes, plans, prays, then I think we probably make the playoffs. That's kind of that's what I got my fingers crossed for. I think the depth signings. I don't know how to pronounce this poor guy's last name. Gautier, I think it is.
Yeah,
Um,
Gautier.
yeah, I think he's a little bit of an underrated pickup. Fits the Islanders mold, right? He kind of plays like Hudson Fasching, who had a bit of a breakout year, not in terms of points, but in terms of impact.
Yeah.
Um, Fast kid, young, plays hard every shift. I mean, that's the Lou mold, right? That Trotz and Lou kind of built the Islanders to be. Um, I think honestly, some rumblings, Clutterbuck might be playing less just because he's old. I mean, he's been a monster for us. I mean, that fourth line when it was in its prime, crazy. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I think he comes in if Clutterbuck has to take some time off for maintenance or just splits the games or gets injured again like he has the past couple years. I think that's an underrated signing because when we lose Clutterbuck, big PK guy, the fourth line isn't the same. Like you don't have players that play like Clutterbuck very often. I think that's a little bit underrated signing, and I think Kuhlman is like a two-way deal. I don't expect he'll be up barring injuries. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
call him up, but I don't expect him to be a regular on the roster.
Yeah, yeah. Coolman, he bounced around a little bit. He was with Boston for a little while, and then I think Seattle picked him up off waivers, or maybe, yeah, I
I
think they picked
think
him up off waivers, or maybe they signed him in free agency or something like that. But yeah, you know, I wouldn't bet your playoff picture on Carson Coolman,
yeah,
but at least with Gautier and like other smaller role players like that, Lou and the rest of the management group sort of knows like the type of guys that they want to bring in. So yeah, they kind of know how to find those players that fit the mold, or at least the mold that they're looking for. So we'll see how those guys gel, and I do think that there's probably going to be some other guys who get some opportunities. I know Dufour was pretty heavily
yeah,
touted at least last year. He didn't. I don't know if he ever really came up, but he was looking pretty good in Bridgeport,
yeah.
and he's he should do pretty well.
I think he played a couple games. I don't know that he'll be on the big club again.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
don't think so either.
yeah, again, maybe a couple games, right? Yeah, again, injuries or if someone's playing below expectations, right, and we scratch them for a couple games. Maybe it happens. I think the other guys to look out for Wallstrom, 1 year prove it deal. I think if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, which is score goals next to Horvat and Barzell, I think he's out of here.
Yeah,
Lou doesn't have
yeah,
a lot of patience for young guys, right? Agree or disagree. It's Lou does not have a ton of patience for young guys. And then I think Aho on the back end, surprisingly good last year.
yeah.
Surprisingly
He
steady.
did have a decent year last year, which it kind of seemed like his time in the league was pretty much wrapping up. But I mean, he did play a role, and we saw him in that series against the other Sebastian Aho in Carolina, which was absolutely delightful.
Right.
So many great weird NHL moments from that
Yeah.
series, and just them scoring like a couple minutes apart and things like that, which was fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Other
oh, it
key
was
piece,
cool
I
to see that.
think, Romanov, kind of the same track as Aho a little bit. Romanov, younger, was never at risk of like not being in the NHL. I don't think anyone is ever going to send him down. But he's like 23, young guy, especially for a D man. He made some pretty huge strides as the season went on. If the roster continues to do what it did last year, and we get a full season of Barzell and Horvat, a full season of Engvall on that second line, I think playoffs are out of the picture. I don't know that we get much further than maybe like the second round though, unless we finally get like that elusive, bona fide score to play with Horvat and Barzell. Um, don't know who that would be. The Brinkhead obviously no longer on the board. Tarasenko no longer on the board. I don't know who he would look to, but Lou knows that. He's the expert. He's the godfather. He's not going to hear me say it and decide to finally
Yeah,
get somebody,
it's
but
pretty light, and yeah, the free agency pool is pretty much strapped at this point. I mean, I think maybe Tatar is like one of the highest guys on there as far as points scored last year. Taves, but I mean he might not be coming back. Go. it's pretty much it. And I think the Islanders are also pretty cap strapped as well. They don't have a ton of room to make move. Actually, they've got no
was gonna say, I think
room.
we might be
So
over. Honestly,
they've got negative. Just looking at cap friendly.
yeah,
Yeah, they have some contract room, but yeah, they'll probably just be sending maybe a couple guys on their roster down to the minors to start the year, and that's probably what they'll be running with. I don't think they're gonna be trading anybody out.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, Romanov, I think you talked about it. He's probably somebody that didn't really get talked a lot about after the last off season. That was sort of a big trade thing. It was a little bit of a head scratcher at the time, because it didn't really that was not really on anybody's radar, and you never really hear a lot about what Lou's doing. So it was a bit of a shock, especially because it does seem like he doesn't make those moves where he gets younger. So it was kind of refreshing as far as just like an outsider's perspective. Like, oh wow, like they're actually not bringing in another like veteran forward who's like in his mid 30s or
right,
something
yeah,
that might be playing like third line D minutes. So it is kind of cool to see that some of these younger players like Wallstrom and Fashing and Romanov are finally getting their roster spots, because it seemed like the last couple of seasons things were pretty much set in their ways as far as the roster, and there wasn't really a ton of options.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was kind of it was pretty much the same roster for like 3 years straight, like you said. I mean, obviously some changes, but like those two conference final runs, we basically just kept running the roster back, which
Yeah,
under Trotz, right? I mean, ain't broke, don't fix it. I think with Lambert, you have to change the roster a little bit. I think Lambert probably will end up being a good coach for us, but you do have to recognize that not everybody is a Barry Trotz. So you got to tweak the roster, get a little younger, a little faster, let the guys play a little looser. You kind of have to equip the roster to fit the style of coaching, which I think I don't think Lou gets a lot of credit, but I think he does a pretty good job of doing that. I think he's a little underrated. Um, or recently he's definitely not an underrated GM, but recently I think he gets kind of shit on a lot, at least by Islanders fans, where it's like, oh, why didn't Lou go out and get Line A? Well, it's like, well, really, like if it were that easy, like he'd do it. I think
yeah,
with what he's got, he's signed a couple contracts, a little a little iffy down the line, but I mean we're pretty much in win now mode. I don't know that the cup window is open right now. I think we still have to make an addition, right? Again, going back to that scoring first line winger, um, but not really the time for a rebuild or really a retool. I mean, I think you have
no,
most of the pieces you need to make another run before the core kind of ages out. So
yeah. That kind of seems like the approach that they've been taking the last couple of seasons. Is yeah, that they're not really in a position, cap wise or contract wise, where it makes sense for them to start tearing things down. And yeah, like they're I guess you could say they're doing a bit of a retool, but it's really just more like trying to bolster their core, with other talented guys. I mean, the Horvat trade, obviously the biggest one there.
yeah,
It's similar to what Vegas was doing, where you know pieces that just weren't working. They found that they could get more offense or more defensive ability from somebody else, so they just bring in someone else. You haven't really seen that as much with the Islanders as far as like letting guys go, but it's a similar strategy, and it does make some sense. I don't think it would be in the Islanders' best interest to start just shedding contracts and moving people out just for the sake of making moves. I mean, we're not very far removed from the past two Eastern Conference final runs, and it's pretty much the same core, but with maybe a little bit more scoring, honestly, with Horvat, and obviously you've got Sorokin now, so which makes a huge difference.
yeah,
So I think as far as like defensive capabilities, you look at the Pelican Pulock pairing there is still a star-studded top line, and then they're starting to fill it out with Dobson's coming in, Romanov we already mentioned. So I think as far as a defense that's willing to get them to the playoffs and make a run, I think they've got that. And yeah, like you mentioned, it's just about trying to find the right scoring touches to get them enough goals to make it through, which we'll see. And maybe that's a scenario where they're looking okay, getting closer to the trade deadline, maybe like December or start of January before the All-Star break. They start evaluating where they're at, if they think that they can still make a push, and maybe they try to add some more scoring from a non-contending team that's got some tantalizing UFAs, and maybe they make a couple moves. Doesn't seem like Lou is very keen on making trade deadline acquisitions, but if he feels that the right move is there, I could totally see a scenario where they try to make a late push and bolster their offense if they really feel like they're gonna make a run for the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. I think I agree. I think Lou's kind of like I think he's allergic to like the rental players, right? Um, like you look at like Horvat and it's like, all right, you sign him, immediately becomes part of the core, monster
Yeah,
deal, right? He's here for the rest of the basically the rest of his career, right? He kind of has a habit of doing that. I'm not one to argue with the strategy, but I think like you said, if there's some guy on a team like the Coyotes or something like that who's like just no hopes of the offseason, and he thinks that they're a fit for the core, I think he brings them in. I don't see us really ever bringing in like a true rental player to try to make just a 1 year push. I just don't think they'll lose style. Like look at the Rangers bringing in Tarasenko and like the rentals and stuff like that. I mean, the team was stacked. The Rangers had a stacked roster going to the playoffs. And then obviously, some of those guys departed. I don't think Lou's gonna build a team like that. I think, like you said, he'll look at someone, maybe team on the outside looking in who's like, well, shit, and let's try to get some assets. And I think Lou, maybe moves out of contract, sends over, current roster player, and then one of our prospects, right? Like the Horvat deal, right? Bavillier, Roddy in a first, something
yeah.
like that, maybe for a scoring winger, and then signs whoever we bring in to a big boy deal. I don't know we'll go after Reynolds, but I think even Lou has to admit that at a certain point you got to make a splash. He did it last year with Horvat. And I think this core has a couple years left. I don't think it's aging out as fast as some of the nihilistic Islanders fans are saying. But we're not the Devils, right? We're not going to be good for the next 10 years. So we gotta take some risks at some point. I think Lou recognizes that. I think he's arguably the best GM of all time. So I think if anyone's going to recognize that, it's him. So.
Yeah, and it is one of those scenarios where it's hard to really evaluate, if his moves are going to make a ton of sense. He does, like you mentioned, he does like to sign those long-term contract extensions. He just signed the 6-year deal for Engvall to stick around. So it's like, is that going to be a head scratcher in like 2 or 3 years? You really will only know until the core is pretty much reshaping, and maybe they're on the outside looking in as far as playoffs. But until then, until this team is definitely not a contender at all, I think it's tough to really say like, oh, look at this Lou move that he made, that it's like it's not really gonna make a huge impact, because I think there's still a couple seasons to go before we really get like a definite answer on his run, and if it made a lot of sense. You could compare it to some other teams where they kept tweaking the course until they finally won. I think Colorado is a good example. It's like, yeah, they kept trying to tweak things to figure out what parts of the core were really necessary and what weren't. Similar to Vegas, but yeah, there's no one recipe, so you won't really know if things are going to work out until either they have or they haven't. And I think we still got a couple more seasons before we really get the answers to that. So we'll see. I mean, I've expressed that I don't think the Islanders are gonna make the playoffs this year. I don't think it's a definite no, But like as far like I'm predicting that they won't make it just because of looking at how tight the East is this year, and I think
Yep.
you can agree that it's like
Crazy.
the most some of the most competitive that it's been in a long time.
Yeah, yeah, no, the East in general is kind of messed up, to be honest. Like how tight it is. I mean, we only last season we only made the playoffs because like the Penguins decided to lose a must-win game against the
Yeah,
Blackhawks at home. Like the East is a crazy, crazy conference. Again this year, a lot of the Eastern Conference teams got better. Some got worse. Bruins, sorry, Dean. But But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. We're if we make it again, I think that we do because I'm a homer and I'm biased and all that. We probably make it as like an 8 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed, right? We're not coming in with like a favorable matchup where we're mud stomping some wild card team. I mean, it'll be the same
no,
situation as last year. We come in and we're playing like the friggin' Hurricanes or I guess Tampa might not be as good this year. New Jersey, a team like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that would be the expectation for pretty much any level-headed Islanders fan or even just NHL fan in general. It's like, yeah, if you think they're gonna make it, they're not gonna be pushing for a top three spot in the Metro. With how good the projected top three, in really any order, New Jersey, Carolina, and the Rangers. I think that's pretty much a lock for the top three at this point. Maybe you think if you're optimistic on the Penguins, and I guess we'll see. If they do end up landing Carlson, maybe that changes the narrative a little bit. But I think pretty much those three that I mentioned are a lock for for shaping the Metro. So yeah, you'd be looking at a wild card spot, probably playing maybe Toronto or top team in the Atlantic or fighting with maybe get the 7 spot, and you're still looking for an uphill battle, which they had this year against Carolina. I think it was a hard fought series. That was definitely an Islanders series where they didn't go down without a fight. They lost a couple heartbreaking overtime games, so it would be a similar scenario, and maybe this year is the year where they're able to get that upset if they do make it. And I think for me, just watching them the past couple of years, if they did make it, I could see a push for conference finals only if the scoring really figures itself out, because they've got the goaltending definitely, and they've got the defense in my opinion to hang with the big boys. It's just, are they going to be able to put the puck in the other net? And that, I think that's been the question mark for the last couple of years, which is why they bring in Horvat, and we'll see what they do. Probably no more moves for this offseason, but we'll see if they do something in season.
Yeah, agreed. I think if we make it, we're a tough. I would love a series against the Rangers or Toronto. That would be so much fun. We talked about the price of playoff tickets. I'll pay whatever it takes to go to one of those games at UBS. I mean
Oh yeah,
that would be a blast. I don't have a house, but I take out a mortgage. You know what I mean? Like I would do whatever. Personal loan at 80% interest. Like done. Whatever it takes to go to a game between the Islanders and one of those teams. I mean that would be a friggin' blast, and chippy, and just the rivalry's already there, and then it turns into playoff hockey. I mean that would be an awesome series. And I'm biased. I think the Islanders win both of those. I have to say that because it's Toronto and the Rangers. But
yeah.
but that would be a blast. Heartbreaking. Earth shattering for me if they lost either of those teams. But
Oh yeah,
it would
definitely.
it would be a blast. I would have to take baby aspirin watching those games so I'd have a heart attack. But but that would be a phenomenal series. And I think they'd be fun matchups. I think even if you're not a fan, like that would be a fun matchup to watch. I know we're like, oh, boring hockey, the Islanders, right? Like, oh, cool, clog the neutral zone, and every
Yeah,
game's 2-1. Um, but then those will be fun games because you got Toronto and the Rangers who are just super high octane. You get the rivalry, and then you get the other side of the coin there, and trying to be defensive and box out and all that. I guess I can't call it fun stuff. All that boring stuff, kind of a battle of two strategies.
yeah, and you got the storylines there. Obviously, Tavares playing against the Islanders would be super fun to watch, especially once they play the UBS games. I think the crowd would be getting really into it. They'd probably be absolutely dogging on him whenever he's got the puck, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the energy would be awesome. And then there's obviously a storied rivalry with the Rangers, so
Yeah.
that would be really fun too. And yeah, like you mentioned, it would be good to see those two different styles clash. I think the Rangers and Toronto are similar in how they're built. They're not completely the same, but yeah, they do have those high octane, skilled players, skilled forwards, especially versus New York. The New York, the Islanders would be a lot more defensively minded, and I do think people do discredit some of their skilled players just because they play for the Islanders. I do think there's some super skilled players there, and um, it's tough to see that they don't get that reputation. But
Yeah.
That's just how it's been the last couple of years, and until things really change, where maybe they're able to acquire some flashy player, in a couple of years they get some prospect that slips through the cracks and suddenly comes up. And I think that was maybe going to happen with Ratu until they traded him. So we'll see if he's like that in Vancouver. I don't know what his timeline would be for coming into the roster, but
Yeah.
I will definitely keep my eye on it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he develops. I think, Islanders Rangers would also be a blast because you have Sorokin versus Shesterkin, right? Kind of like the new era of like elite Russian goalie. I mean, obviously Vazzy's still the best because he's Vazzy.
Yeah.
But they both came over. They're both like best friends. Like they're playing golf and stuff in the off season, and they go to the States,
They're
play
always
for
training
rival
together.
teams. Yeah, exactly. And they did the same thing in the KHL. They were like on like the two best goalies in the KHL. They would play each other in like the Gregor Cup, and they do like these ridiculous goalie duels. That would be just such a blast to watch. So I'm excited for next season. I don't have crazy high expectations of us, being kind of like, how the Bruins were last year, where everyone's like, God, they still have it in them, and then it turns out it's like the best team to ever play in the regular season. Nothing like that, but I am excited. Should be a good season. A full season of Horvat and Barzal, especially, I think will be exciting. Maybe Barzal's the scoring winger we always needed. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the Islanders had that same like ceiling potential that the Bruins did last year. I mean, I don't think anybody does
No.
really. They had a historical year, but um, yeah, I think Barzell has been written off a little bit recently just because he's had maybe a couple down years, relative to where his skill ceiling is, and I think he's dealt with a couple injuries too. It's a make or break season, really. I feel because maybe if they don't make it this year, they could push again next season and find a way to get back in. But it kind of seems like the writing's more or less on the wall, for these next one or two seasons, where if things really start to decline and they keep getting further and further back in the standings, it might be the end of an era, which I think a lot of fans are sort of predicting. Next 5 years how the league's going to shake up. I think a lot of people are saying the Islanders are going to be at the bottom of the league, which I'm sure is tough to hear, especially after some heartbreaking seasons where they weren't quite there, and that's unfortunately the nature of the sport. Only one team wins every season. Sometimes it's the same team, which can be very frustrating if you're
Right.
if you're if you're a fan, and especially if you get gotten eliminated by them 2 years in a row. So, yeah, it's tough to have a really promising season. I think kind of similar to the optimism for like Senators fans. We were talking with Owen last year. It seems like a lot of Sens fans feel like they're very close, and if they fall back again, it's like, oh my gosh, another disappointing season, and then yeah, you could be looking down the barrel in 5 years, and you're like, oh my god,
So
we were
close.
so naive. We had no idea what was coming to us.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know. Next 5 years, I think the core is a little underrated. None of the guys are super old. I don't think that will be like a playoff team in 5 years unless we get a little younger. But, like you mentioned about prospects slipping through the cracks. We have DeFore. We have Maggio, who right now is like our best forward prospect, who was like a 6th-round pick. A couple of guys on defense whose names I'm blanking on that are looking really promising that were late-round picks. I think if a couple of those guys pan out, they step up and they replace, some of the vets that in 5 years will probably age out of the league, right? The Clutterbucks, the Martins, which sucks because they're two of my favorite players, but some of those guys, right? Palmieri in 5 years, probably a little too old to be in our top 6.
Yeah.
Guys like that. I think if we replace them with guys from the Bridgeport Islanders, right? I think that the rest of the core will be okay. But we have to have some young guys, step up at some point. I mean, down the middle, we're kind of stacked. I mean, we have 5 NHL caliber centers, right? I mean, Barzell's playing wing. I think that's kind of the hardest combiner to have other than a strong top pairing D.
Yeah. You can't have too many centers.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if we start to lose some of that bottom 6 and, middle 6, nobody steps up, then we're screwed, and we're going back to the 2011 Islanders that I remember so fondly, where we're getting free agents that are like, yeah, they had like 8 points last year, and it's like, oh, they're going in our top 6, right? Because he's fast, guys like that. Obviously, still have some players that you remember fondly from those old years, like Michael Grabner. Loved watching that guy. He'd get 8 breakaways a game. You just haul ass up the ice. But those teams a lot of the time, it's. I think we'll be back there, if we don't have some young guys step up, which would be kind of a shame that we never made it over the hump that was, the stacked Tampa Bay team from a couple years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is one of the things when you're talking about teams that are having, a few seasons of no success, that you do sort of pick out, players that stand out in those eras. It's like, oh yeah, well, we didn't really have a good couple of years there, but man, we had some fun guys and some interesting seasons. It is tough though.
Yeah.
Like I said, every year it's only one franchise that really gets to celebrate, and we'll see if that's how things go for the Islanders. Like I said, I don't see them as a cup contender for the next couple of years. And then, if you're looking down the barrel, in 5 years or so, you might be wasting some time with Sorokin. He is locked up, so it would be tough to see, a player of that caliber not be able to play in the playoffs. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that would be a shame, wasting Sorokin and like some of Barzell's years and stuff like that. I mean, that would hate to see that. I'm sure they would hate to see it too. So hopefully we hopefully we stay competitive for a little bit. For those guys in their prime years, but lose the boss.
And I think most of the team believes that they can still compete, right? I think that's the expectation from the locker room is that they still feel that they're just as good as those teams from 2020, 2021, and that they've still grown and they've gotten better. So at least as far as the players, I think I don't know any of them personally, but I that's how I feel, is they still believe they can do it. I would say probably out of the 32 teams in the league, I'd say there are probably about maybe 24 or 25 that do go into every season, especially this year, that feel like they got a shot to make the playoffs. And as we saw with Florida, it's like that could be the biggest hurdle, is just getting in, and then it's all about playoff hockey. Everything changes, and they feel that they've got enough to make it.
Yeah. I mean, Florida, that Kings team from 2014 when they won the cup, they came as the 8th seed. They were written off, and they made a mockery of the rest of the league. I mean, they lost 4 games all playoffs, something like that. They had 2 so crazy. So you never know. I don't know that we have that Cinderella story. in us, but I know the players believe in it. Believe in Lou, believe in Lane. That's half the battle, right? Is getting teams to buy in. I know there's other teams. I won't name names that wish that they had a unified locker room, um, like the Isles do, which is one thing that even like when the team starts to suck, it'll still be an era that I can look back on, like really appreciate of like all the guys super tight knit. It was a team's team, kind of the culture that Trotz and Lewin still, I mean. Same with Nashville when Trotz was over
Definitely.
there, and the Capitals when Trotz was there, right? It's just kind of the Trotz effect. And then when he leaves, it doesn't really change, right? It's like, well, why would we go back to being, So even if we don't win, I appreciate being able to watch good Islanders hockey. Even if it's not championship Islanders hockey, it's close enough. Better than the early 2010s, like when there wasn't much to cheer about.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think if the next couple of years go by and they're disappointing, maybe no playoffs, do you see Lou sticking around? Like it. Do you think the ownership group lets him go finally? He has been there for a little bit now, and it might seem like his ways, if the moves that he makes doesn't really amount to much, if they need a change, need a spark. They did let go of Barry Trotz, which some people thought might be a bit of a shock. And I think, yeah, the next logical step would probably be letting Lou go.
Yeah. I think for me, in my mind, the most likely scenario is Lou, I won't say relegates himself, but I think he takes a step back himself of his own volition. Because right
Mm,
now he's president of hockey ops and GM. I think our next GM will be Chris Lamarillo, Lou's son. He's the GM down at
mm,
Bridgeport Islanders. I think Lou, maybe a little bit of nepotism, I guess. But
maybe.
right. But if he does good things at Bridgeport, then who cares, right? Then who the hell cares? So I think the most likely scenario is Lou takes a step back. He, hands off a little bit, moves to being just president, brings up his son Chris as kind of the GM. I don't see Lou leaving the organization until he retires from hockey, which at this point is
Mm,
probably only a couple years away. Um,
yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of the value of just having his name attached to your franchise, I think the owners probably don't get rid of him unless there's a really good reason. Um, we don't have like the Toronto media where it's like if you don't win a cup, everybody sucks, ownership's garbage, GM sucks, coach bad, right? We don't
Yeah.
we don't have that same kind of media pressure to like make like, these really big moves. Um, so again, I think Lou probably will end up retiring instead of getting fired or asked to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think most likely he spends maybe one or two more seasons being GM and then backs off a little bit hands off, kind of goes to like just being the president of ops, um, and lets his son Chris take the reins. I think that's probably, in my mind, in 5 years, probably where we end up with our front office. Um, that's my
Seem
guess.
like that does seem like the Islanders' way, right? Like
Yeah,
that seems very on brand for them. Would be to continue that succession. I could definitely see that. Yeah, bringing in Chris, and he still got that name recognition. I'm sure some of the other general managers have become acquainted with him over the years. So you still got those relationships. I'm sure it's tough for like a new general manager to come in and start building those relationships with other managers. And they don't always work with everybody. There are some teams where they just, yeah, I'm not trading with him. I don't like that guy, or I don't like that team. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that would probably make sense for them. And it would sort of be like a steady progress towards getting some youth, getting some new
hmm
ideas injected without like completely flipping the script. So that kind of seems like how the Islanders operate.
yeah, agreed. Plus with Chris, there's a little bit of that right? He's dealing with GMs. It's a little bit of like the "I'll tell my dad on you" kind of thing, right? Because like no one screws Lou, right? And now his son, it's like, oh well, shit, right? It's like he's gonna go tell his dad. So
Yeah.
it's probably a little bit of that. So I think that would be beneficial for the Islanders, right? Still have the last name kind of attached to the GM. He'll have to earn a little bit of that respect, but I'm sure it's a little bit baked in when your dad's in the league for I don't know 40 years or however the hell long.
Yeah.
So
It
I
feels
think
like 40.
I know. I think that's probably the likely scenario. And honestly, unless it would be something like and again, I don't think this would happen. But if Trotz comes over as GM, leaves Nashville, I don't think he'll do that. I think he loves Nashville. I think Nashville loves him. But hey, all right, maybe we bring Barry Trotz back. I think that's realistically one of the only other successors to Lou. Otherwise, I think Lou backs himself out into retirement, and Chris Lamoriello takes the reins.
Yeah, that's probably what'll happen. I guess let's shift forward a little bit. Besides just talking about the playoff picture, let's talk a little bit more about the next season as far as for the Islanders. We talking about they have the Stadium Series game coming up. It's been a little while for them. There's going to be those 2 sets of games there at MetLife, I believe. They've got the Rangers, Devils, Islanders, and the Flyers are all playing. So that'll be cool. It's good to get those, and I think maybe not the Flyers so much, but the rest of those teams have been competitive recently, and there's seems like the rivalries are starting to come back a little bit. So it'll be cool to see that. Get a little bit change of scenery and see what some of those teams do with the jerseys. Also, the Stadium Series jerseys seems to be a little bit different. They usually kind of get a little bit experimental or go a little bit off the wall. So, especially with the Islanders, it'll be interesting to see. I don't think they'll do like something similar to what they did with the last Stadium Series, which is their current alternate. So I don't know if they're gonna bring in a brand new logo or what. I don't actually know if they're going to be considered the home team or the away team, because I think that's usually how they design the 2 jerseys for the teams that are playing. Is one team is like sort of designated as the home, so they have like the darker colors and then maybe like a lighter color for the other team. So I don't know if they've really announced that yet. I think they're playing against the Flyers, and then the Rangers are playing the Devils. Do you know if that's what it is?
I thought that we got the Rangers game. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
but I think Rangers play Islanders in 2024 Stadium Series at MetLife.
Oh, okay. So it is Rangers then, and then it's Devils, Flyers. Okay.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense. Like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and then like the 2 New York teams, right?
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Yeah, that's going to be a blast.
Definitely.
Even it's more exciting because both teams are good. Islanders Rangers always good games, even when the Islanders are terrible or like when the Rangers were terrible, where like the team steps up. It's always a fun game. You do the Stadium Series with the festivities. Hopefully Lou lets the franchise have a little bit of fun with the Stadium Series jerseys. He gave us the fish sticks back, so we'll see what he lets them get away with.
I wonder if that's like, all right, I gave you this, that's it.
Right.
We're gonna do something very, very bland, very Islanders, or if they're gonna branch out a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see the Stadium Series jersey. I'll probably buy one. I have one from the old one in like 2014 or 15, whenever we did
14,
that.
I think. Yeah.
So that'll be cool to see the jerseys, like you said. And it's fun for tri-state hockey, right? So I mean, you include the Devils in there. I mean, it's fun when the teams are good. Flyers, like you said, they kind of suck, but right, at least for the tri-state rivalry, it's cool when all the teams are good. I expect the Devils to kind of stomp on the Flyers a little bit, but I think Rangers Islanders it'll be a close game, in a stadium with however many tens of thousands of people. That'll be cool. be good for hockey, be good for the Islanders and as a franchise. So I was pretty stoked when I saw that we got a Stadium Series this year.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the league didn't do last year, which was like just so surprising, which they are doing this year, is having the outdoor games be the only games that are being played. I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing for all the outdoor games this year. Is like this is the thing you're gonna watch. Like for the Stadium Series game last year against it was Capitals versus Hurricanes. They had like it was I think it was like a matinee game, and then they had another game in the afternoon, or maybe it was flip flopped. But it was like I don't know why you would do that where you like totally alienate like some of the fans because they want to watch the other game. It's like you gotta make the outdoor game, the special game, like the most marketed game. Like I feel like a lot of people didn't even know that it was happening last year. Like, oh, the Stadium Series game is today or it's like tomorrow. Like I literally had no idea. Like I obviously knew because I like religiously follow the league and I was like looking for what the jerseys were gonna look like too. But yeah, I feel like at least for the Stadium Series, a lot of people were like, oh, that's happening. Like, so I think they're doing better about this year. They did have the Winter Classic all on its own last year, and they're going to do that again this year. And then they've got the Heritage Classic, which is the Battle of Alberta. So that'll be awesome. Those are always fun games or playoff series when they happen. It was really cool to see that a couple of years back. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, all the Stadium Series games I think are usually pretty sweet when people know they're going on. But yeah, like you said, I didn't even know that like it was going on last year. I think I was in a hotel like for work and like flipping through the channels and I'm like, they playing outside? I literally had no idea. The Heritage Classic would
Yeah,
be cool, right? Just McDavid in general is like worth of the price of admission. Um, but like you said, right,
definitely.
Battle of Alberta, right? Oh, Calgary and Edmonton. Calgary's probably not going to be great this year, but it's the same thing as Islanders Rangers, right? Like they play up, the games are good. You get that little edge to it, and
Yeah,
that'll be
neither
fun.
team wants to lose that game.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
it,
both those teams are like, we are not gonna lose against these freaking guys.
it's like
Like,
I'm.
they totally ramp up the intensity.
It's like I'm not losing in front of 100,000 people at this game. You know, screw these guys. It's a lot of fun.
I guess we could talk a little bit also about this upcoming season. I know one of your favorite players. He's one of the longest tenured Islanders. Bailey gets bought out this year, this off season. So he's looks like he's done. I don't think anybody's really looking at picking him up. Maybe somebody gives him a look. I haven't heard anything official for like retirement or whatever, but yeah, it was a tough season last year. I think a lot of Islanders fans were kind of thinking of him more as a liability than an asset. I don't know if I could go that far, say that, but yeah, it was a pretty steep drop off for him,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
unfortunately.
yeah, I love Bailey. He's one of those guys that he was on the team as like a young guy. He was like the fifth or sixth overall pick. Like all these insane expectations. And he got drafted to Islanders team that was just awful. I mean, like laughably bad. Like might have lost to AHL teams. Um, and they're like, "All right, Josh, you're 18 years old. Fresh out of high school, right? It's like and they're
Yeah,
like, go save the franchise." And he's like, "What the hell?" So it was probably time to move on. But all the fans that are like, "Oh, fuck Josh," I can't get behind that. Guy was a warrior. Never said a bad thing about the Islanders, even when we were the laughing stock of the league. When the front office was just a joke, when the team was terrible. I mean, he never complained about it. Started a family there. You know, did his best with the tools he was given. Um, I think he got cap dumped to like Chicago, right? I think that was the team that we had traded him to because I think we
yeah,
traded him, right?
Yeah, it was a trade to Chicago, and then Chicago bought him out.
Yeah, I can't believe. I think it's really just a mistake for Chicago to do that. They're not going to compete this year, and you got guys like Bedard, right? And you want to learn from players. I mean, you can't have a better role model than Josh Bailey. Um, I think, again, I also haven't heard anything about teams picking him up off of free agency. I think those really young teams, like Chicago or like Arizona, where like they're like, all right, we got to try to figure out how to start this next era. He's been there before. He lived that with the Islanders when it's like, all right, this team's really bad. Everyone knows they're going to be bad. How do you deal with that? How do you make the best of it? I mean, you couldn't find a better guy to like guide the young rookies and young sophomores or whatever through navigating that part of that early part of the career. Crazy that no one picks him up if nobody does. I think a team probably will pick him up, right? Again, the Coyotes, something like that, where even if they're trying to hit the cap floor, right? Because Chicago is always doing stuff like that. I think that he's definitely worth a roster spot on those teams, and if not, I would love to have him back in the organization. I think that he would be a great guy to have as like a player development coach. And he
Yeah.
thinks back to when he was 18 and getting developed, and he's like, all right, we're gonna do the opposite of what the Islanders did for me
Yeah.
15 years ago, and
Yeah.
we'll have 8 McDavids. You know what I mean? Like I mean he went through terrible development. I think that he would be such an asset to the organization on the development side. Um, if and when he retires, obviously he'll have to at some point. But if he doesn't end up playing this season and the next couple seasons, would love to bring him back. I don't know that we, retire the jersey, but I mean he'll have a special place in my heart and a lot of other fans' hearts. As played 1,000 games here. Not many guys have done that with one
Yeah.
team, especially for the Islanders. So I'll always appreciate him. I don't know that I have a Bailey jersey. I'll definitely have a Bailey jersey. One of those guys that like he was never putting up the crazy points and the star power that like he was projected to be. But he had a lot of solid productive years on just a really just abysmal Islanders team. So you can't ask for much more. Um, Sucks to see him leave. Again, it was time. We need the cap space. He was a healthy scratch for a lot of the games, which he wasn't happy with. So you can't pay a healthy scratch $5 million a year. You just can't. That's I'm no professional GM, but I know that much. So again, sucks that he had to leave. I guess it was time, but it would be a shame if he doesn't end up back in either in the organization with us or on some team guiding the next generation of players. Being, hey guys, this is how you navigate being on a terrible team and being 18 years old. I mean he definitely still has value in the league. I hope he sticks around and finds something that works for him because he deserves that much. He was a real warrior for us. So I got a big soft spot for Josh Bailey.
Yeah, you got to tip your hat to those guys that have stuck through it. The years of turmoil with the team, and it is a bit rarer these days. I mean, maybe not so with your players of the same similar caliber as Bailey, but you've seen that with a couple of our star players recently. Dubois has gone around a little bit. Some other big name players where it feels like they don't want to stick around, and they have every right to do that, but it's appreciated at least by fans to have that level of loyalty to teams, to franchises that have especially if they were the ones who drafted them and brought them up and brought them into the league. There's something nice about that, having those players, those homegrown guys who spent all their time there. Yeah, 1,000 games. I mean, that's you don't get that everywhere, and to have a workhorse like that is super valuable. I would definitely see a scenario where he signs or not signs. He joins the Islanders organization. Yeah, probably in like a player development or some sort of role, maybe scouting. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I could definitely see something like that for him. I think he was beloved by the fans, like like you said. So that seems like it would make the most sense. And I don't even think that if he is definitely done playing, I think he could probably join the franchise now since Chicago bought out his contract, so he doesn't have any actual ties to Chicago. But we'll see. I do agree that probably some of those developing teams who aren't quite there yet for the playoffs, but want to continue to develop their young guys. It's invaluable to have that veteran presence there. Somebody who was fed to the wolves more or less. Like yeah, here's what you have for expectations, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. You're just starting out in this league.
Yeah.
And even like I'm sure, it doesn't get talked about as much, but I'm sure there's a lot of like minutia and like little details about being an NHLer or being like a fringe NHLer that some players don't really know about. Like what happens with the off season and what happens with going to practice and just all these like little things about scheduling and hotels and staying with other players that I'm sure like those veteran guys like can work through with younger players.
Yeah.
Probably it doesn't get talked about enough, but I'm sure that stuff happens all the time where those veteran guys bring in those younger players. I think some I can't remember. There was some Toronto guy that was housing one of their young prospects. I'm trying to remember. I think Tavares was hosting one of those guys. Maybe.
Yeah, I think.
It wasn't Abruzzese. It was.
I
It's
don't
gonna kill me.
know.
I'm
Yeah,
sure. I'm sure we'll have it in
right.
post here.
Yeah, we'll have you added in post. Yeah, I know. Like,
Maybe it was Nick Robertson. I can't remember. Yeah. Oh, it's driving me crazy now.
I
But
know, I know. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, like you said, like Toronto, like when Matt Martin, one of my favorite players, when he,
love
left for
Martin.
Toronto, which was a heartbreaker. Glad he's back and will hopefully retire an Islander, as he should. He took Marner under his wing, on the Islander side of things. Barzell, when he was first in the league, he lived with Dennis Seidenberg. There's a really cool, like funny, it's like maybe a 10-minute like YouTube video that MSG Networks put out. Back when Barzell was like a rookie, still a young kid, of like him living in like the basement of like the Seidenberg's house and like all that minutia, right? Like, all right, like you're not 16 playing, varsity hockey or some pro development league hockey where you can go and eat pizza rolls like you're an athlete. We have kale smoothies and whatever the hell. I don't know. I'm ordering Domino's
Yeah.
after this. I'm not a nutritionist, but like all the little things. Like I know
Yeah.
he lived with Seidenberg for a while, and I think Bavillier did too. Actually, lived with like Boychuk or something like that. So the veteran stuff there, even outside of the game of like hey, this is how you play, and hey, this is how you stay in the league, this is how you be professional. If nothing else, I think Bailey is just the perfect role model for stuff like that. So it'd be a real shame if he doesn't get back in the league in either a player or the staffing role. I think he belongs in the league in some form or another.
Definitely. Yeah, it's funny. I was watching some of the the training camp footage, or not training camp. The combine stuff, like with the players and like scouting and things, and they have like each team has their little like mini camps with the prospects, and they're teaching them like cooking classes and stuff, because like yeah, you forget like these guys are fresh out of high school, maybe they're starting college or whatever, but yeah, these guys, they're young kids, they're barely adults. They don't really know how to probably take care of themselves as well as they should. Maybe some of them don't even know how to do like laundry or yeah, like cook a basic meal. So it is cool to see that sort of side of the league, and I think we've been getting more and more of that recently, just like with the social media presence, and we've getting a lot more behind the scenes looks in some teams, which is always cool. Just to see, yeah, like the more human side of the players and of the league, rather than just like here's this name. It's some guy. He plays for the team, and that's all he does. He does,
Right.
he.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, these guys, they have lives outside of hockey. They have hometowns. They've got families. They've got other ambitions and things like that. So
Yeah.
definitely cool to see that.
Yeah. The human side of the sport, right? Where it's like they're being people and not like some jersey with a number, and you're like, how'd you miss that shot? Right. It's cool to see like the other side of the league and the players and stuff like that. And I think you know there's not many players that would be better at helping mold young guys on the other side of the game than Bailey. So I won't monologue or dialogue with you anymore on Bailey and make you listen to that. But I do hope he finds some kind of role because big Josh Bailey stan. You know, never say a bad word about him. Got a soft spot for him.
Yeah, I agree. I've honestly not followed him as long as you have, but yeah, he seems like he's always been the right guy there. So it would be cool to, maybe I could get a Bailey jersey at some point. I still need to get my home Islanders jersey. I've been looking for one for a while. I
Oh
don't.
yeah.
Maybe if he officially announces retirement, people will start like selling their Bailey jerseys or whatever. I don't think seems like the NHL shop, at least for the American site, is like terrible at actually
So bad.
putting jerseys on sale,
Yeah.
like even after retirements. Like there've been a couple. I thought about getting a Taylor Hall jersey after he got traded,
Mhm.
but I didn't end up pulling the trigger on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's because I think the Canadian site gets like way better deals,
Oh, I'm
and
sure. Yeah.
there's like other Canadian retailers where they get like crazy good sales, and it's like, sorry, don't ship to the United
Yeah.
States. Like,
You're like,
oh my
okay.
god,
Yeah. That's screw me, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. So you try to like broker with somebody, or I have done it a couple times where I've done with this site called Ship by Mail. You like send it to like a warehouse address, and then they send it to you like you pay
Oh,
to
interesting.
send it. So yeah, you can do that. Like if it works out where the money is like you're still saving money if you use that service, and you get
Hmm.
like a really good sale that's Canadian only. So I have done that a couple times. It's been a little while, but it is kind of nice to know that there's at least some services that do
Yeah.
that. I guess I'm just looking through our bullet points here. I think we pretty much hit mostly everything.
Yeah.
We didn't. I guess we're sort of jumping out of order, but if you want to talk a little bit about how you got into hockey, I guess, and how you got into the Islanders, because we're not from downstate in New York. You're not living in New York anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you think when you think of the Islanders, you're pretty much just thinking about the island. You're not really thinking about upstate and stuff. So
Yeah.
just your thoughts, I guess, a little bit about how you grew up as a hockey fan, and I think your journey there. I know your dad's an Islanders a big Islanders fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the key right there. I was indoctrinated since birth. I mean, my dad, he grew up on the island, born in the island, lived in the island for all of his childhood and like young adult years before he moved upstate. So
I didn't actually know that.
yeah, yeah. So he probably the first 23 years of his life lived in the island. So that's how he became. That's how he was an Islanders fan. I mean, he got to grow up, when they were unbeatable, right? Like he went to
Yeah,
games when the collie was Fort Never Lose, and he watched the dynasty, and you know, got to experience all that. So obviously, as a lot of guys do, right? You're born and you're like, well, guess I'm an Islanders fan, right? You're watching it with your dad, and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then since you've been watching it since you were, two, it just
yeah,
kind of, it just becomes who you are. So I mean, I remember um, we would play, like knee hockey, like ever since I was like literally like before I could like really walk. Um, or maybe really run. I could walk, but we had like little foam like sticks that had like the Islanders thing on them that he got from like the team store or something, and like
Yeah.
the little foam pucks, and I'd like shoot the puck on him, and like the kitchen door frame was the goal. Um, and it's funny, like I didn't grow up watching a lot of like kids TV shows, but every time the Islanders were on, I'd watch it with my dad. I'd be like, a lot of kids grew up on like Barney or like Teletubbies or something. I was watching the Islanders. I mean that's just because he had it on when he was doing whatever in the
Yeah.
house, and I would just be like, oh, this is cool. I'll just hang out with my dad. And that was watching the Islanders. Um, and then obviously you get a little older, and then you start to form your own attachment to the team and follow it, and you're like, oh, I really like this guy and that guy, and then from there it turns into an unhealthy obsession. Um, that is punishing when you're an Islanders fan. Not a whole lot of success like we already talked about.
Yeah, that must be why your dad's so miserable these days.
Yeah, right.
Because he knows what it's like to watch a championship team multiple years in a row.
Yep.
And now we're here.
Yep. Yeah, he grew up watching Bossy and them just like dunk on other teams like they weren't even in the same league. So bit of a fall from grace. He does also really enjoy kind of the current Islanders, like how tight knit the group is and the culture. It's very reminiscent, according to him anyway, very reminiscent of the dynasty team from the early mid '80s. He also has a kind of a really like deep dislike of Gretzky because he kind of ended the Islanders dynasty. Not quite single-handedly, but like kind of single-handedly. So every once in a while I'll bring up the Oilers, and he's not an Oilers fan. I'm like, oh, dude, McDavid's so fun to watch. He's like, yeah, but the Oilers suck. And I'm like, all right. But yeah, that's where it all started, just kind of inherited it. I used to play some hockey leagues, and like camps and stuff when I was younger, like the mini mites hockey camp for like the first half would be like trying to suck less at skating, and the second half would be like, half rink scrimmages with no goalies. Played hockey leagues with my dad, like some 3-on-3, like adult leagues back when I still lived at home. Did that stuff with him, and that, playing hockey makes you love watching hockey, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Kind of you get to appreciate the professionals and just how freaking good they are at this game where you're flying around on ice with knives on your feet. So that helped, make you a bigger and bigger fan. But yeah, it kind of all started just being indoctrinated, like, pretty much from birth. There was no other choice. I was an Islanders fan, right? Like, that was that, and obviously you go to your first live game and you're like, all right, I'm obsessed.
Oh yeah, totally cements it.
Yep. Yeah. So going to the Coliseum where you could get, I remember we would get, like center ice seats, like 4 rows back from the glass. It was like $50 a ticket because like nobody wanted to watch the Islanders. Like we sucked.
Yeah.
Like so doing that and having the Islanders always on and the living room TV, all that stuff. I kind of had no other option. It was kind of a destined to be an Islanders fan, regardless of, if we were ever any good or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny talking about going to the games with your dad because I actually took my dad to his first ever NHL game. I had actually been to games before, and he had never been. So we saw the Rangers this past season at home. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Like a little bit of a role reversal there. It's like I'm actually teaching him about the sport, and
Right.
and he's asking questions and things, talking about the players. That was kind of fun. And the Rangers did lose, so I remember when I was watching the game, I was like, "Don't worry, Zane. I'm rooting for the Rangers, so they will lose, and you are welcome."
And then they
lost,
do. Yeah.
They lost that game. I think it was like 5-2. It was like pretty embarrassing.
Not quite close. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the true bred experience for watching a game. So my dad got the whole thing. My mom came too. I think that was probably her first game also.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah. Did they ever like go up to Clarkson and watch Clarkson games at all? Like when you were at Clarkson, or no?
They did go to at least one of the like the parents' weekend games. So we got to see them. I think they were playing against SLU there too. St. Lawrence University, who's Clarkson's
That's a
rival.
good one to go to.
Yeah, so I think that lined up on one of the
Yeah.
weekends.
Yeah,
So
no,
that was cool.
But yeah, no, I remember going to one of the SLU games, and that's always a fun,
A
uh,
little borked.
yeah, a little tenacious rivalry. We'll say, especially when it's a bunch of beard up college kids. But it's always fun.
Yeah, yeah, especially because there aren't any other teams even like close to Clarkson, like as in terms of like geographically. So
Right.
like having that direct rival, it's only like one time we tried to go to a game, but it was all like at St. Lawrence. Normally we went to all like the home Clarkson games, so we wanted to go see them play at St. Lawrence. So we went to go to the game. They sold out all this open door like in the back, which like led to like the locker rooms. And I do still wish that we like just went in there and just like started looking around until we like found out we were that cool and that we did that. But we didn't. We just left. But it would have been fun though.
That would have been
Just
cool.
like pop in, maybe say hi to a couple of players. SLU sucks. Go Clarkson, and then just
You just take off, yeah.
yeah.
That would be funny.
Uh, I do wish we had done that, but we were like, no. What if we get caught?
Yeah.
We're typical Clarkson nerdy engineers. All like, no, I don't want to do that. We'll
like-
just go home and watch it on the TV. So
Right. Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble.
that's how
so
we
yeah.
ended up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Probably wise, but would have been a
Yeah,
fun story.
I guess so. I guess yeah. It definitely would have been funnier than the not going story. Oh well. Yeah, I guess that's all I've got for you. I don't know if you have any other closing remarks for today.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we hit mostly everything. Trying to think. I thought there was one thing that I had that I didn't add to the list, but I'm sure it'll come to me, and I'll just comment on your video when it goes up on YouTube. Obviously, I'm subscribed to your channel, of course.
Oh well,
So
thank you.
Bell on, all the the whole 9 yards.
Hit that bell for the notifications.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
there you go.
So
Get
I'll just
the quick subscriber plug there.
yeah, I'll add it as an addendum to as a comment, and I'm sure everybody will take their time to read what I have to say as well as right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'll
Surely,
I'll pin it.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone will have their breath held for whatever I forgot on the actual episode.
Oh, I better check the comments right now so I can see. Oh. Oh, what an insightful
Right.
piece there.
Oh,
Thank you
awesome.
so much. Well, this was good, man. We'll definitely have to have you on again. Maybe we'll do a couple different people on. Maybe we'll do like a high school reunion sort of episode with some other folks that are hockey fans, or we'll get some of the other Clarkson guys to rejoin. Zane did not go to Clarkson, but he did visit us a couple times, so we were very happy to have him there and enjoy the Clarkson experience, the D1 hockey.
Yeah, those are always fun. Sitting at a state school in Albany, not the most fun, but going up to Clarkson and seeing D1, college hockey. Always a fun time. College hockey's awesome. It's just played at like it's like a little imperfect, right? It's not where everything is like super like calculated, like deliberate, like it is in the NHL, right? Like the systems are a little looser. Like you have guys like losing their shit when they score a goal and just like having like fun with it. That's the one thing I wish the NHL would encourage a little more is like every once in a while you get like those great celebrations, right? Like the Devils guy. I can't remember who on the Devils. Devils fans are gonna murder me, but he throws the stick into like right at the walk-off goal and tosses a stick into the crowd, right? Like those like series.
Oh yeah, I think that was Hughes.
I think it was. Those are so much fun. Like every time a college kid scores, he's like going crazy and doing some. Just so much energy. Like the imperfections make it fun. Crazy stuff happens every game. So watching the
Definitely.
Clarkson games were always fun.
Yeah, I was saying that in another episode. I definitely want to get back up there to see some games.
Yep.
I actually don't have a Clarkson jersey either. I don't even know if I know what their current jerseys look like because they've changed a couple of times since I was attending school, and then since I've graduated, they've changed their look around a couple of times, and I feel like it's kind of difficult. Like I tried to look to buy one online, and I think I had a hard time like finding them being sold anywhere. So
Yeah.
maybe you can only get them at the arena. So guess that's another incentive to go check things out.
Yeah, that's worth a trip. I think you have to have one as an alumni, right? Like you got to have a Clarkson jersey. Add it to
Yeah.
the rack in the backdrop there.
Oh yeah.
You know
Maybe
that one.
I'd throw it on the wall.
I was just gonna say. I think that one goes on the wall next to the Vegas jersey. I think that deserves to be in its own display.
Yeah. I was thinking about putting because I got the two reverse retros there. I was thinking about putting the whenever the Winter Classic goes, like right there,
Yeah.
right there, there. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
there, next to it, just to round out the alternate jerseys or whatever. And I've got other ones off camera. I've got the three main ones there: the gray, the gold, and the white on another wall off screen. And I got my Islanders up there.
Yes.
And I actually got you one of those too.
Yes. Yeah. I have mine next to my setup. It's facing the bed so I can fall asleep every night looking at it. So very deliberate with the placement there. Yeah.
Yeah. Happy Islanders dreams.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm manifesting a cup in my lifetime every night.
Manifest 100-point season for Barzell and Matt Martin too. We'll give him 100 points. Sure, why the heck not?
Yeah, right. We'll just give him like the greatest power forward season since Lindros, just because.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
It's my dream. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, exactly. You can have 200 points. You can break Rescue's record. Who cares?
Yeah, sure. Alrighty, man. Well, I guess I'll let you go and appreciate everybody tuning in this week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
Take care, man.
Two seconds is kind of my sweet spot.